Before we start today's story, please let us know your location in the comment section and don't forget to like and subscribe. What do you do when the two people you love and trust the most betray you? I've been asking myself this question for the past few days, and I still don't have an answer. Before everything fell apart, I was living a happy life with my wife, Nora. Sure, we had a few issues, which I'll explain in a moment, but overall, life was good. I met Nora at a convention, and we instantly connected. We started dating, and after a few years, we got married. Despite the problems we faced, Nora has always been a great wife and an amazing partner. I truly believed I was lucky to have her. The other person who meant so much to me was my best friend, Jake, who lived nearby. I met Jake in college, and we've been inseparable ever since. We've been friends for nearly a decade, so you can imagine the amount of trust and love I had for him. I was even overjoyed when he moved close to us after getting married. It was one of the happiest days of my life. I did everything for Jake. He was my best man, and I helped him propose to his wife. We were more like brothers than friends, and Nora and Jake got along really well, which made me even happier. But then everything changed. About 6 months ago, I started noticing small differences in Nora's behavior. It wasn't anything major, just subtle shifts that made me wonder if she was falling out of love with me. I always tried to be the best husband I could be, and I constantly felt like she could do better than me. Yet, whenever I voiced these concerns, Nora would reassure me that I was everything she wanted in a partner and that she was more than happy with me. I had always believed that I was the perfect husband, that everything was going well between Nora and me. She convinced me of it so many times. How lucky she was to have me, how happy she was. I took it all in, never once questioning it. But in the past few months, something felt off. It was subtle at first, a change in her tone, a distance in her eyes when we'd talk. Whenever I tried to bring it up, she'd reassure me, no, everything's fine. I'm happy, really, but her words didn't match the flicker of hesitation in her voice. I kept pushing the thought to the back of my mind, but it gnawed at me. One evening, over dinner, I finally said, Nora, I've been feeling like something's off between us. Is everything really okay? She smiled, that familiar smile, and reached across the table to hold my hand. You're imagining things. I promise, you're doing great. I'm very happy with you. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But something about the way she said it didn't sound genuine. It was almost like she was trying too hard. Still, I didn't want to rock the boat. I wanted to trust her, so I kept it to myself. Then I spoke to Jake about it. We were having drinks one night, and I confided in him, hoping for some advice. I'm starting to feel like Nora's unhappy, I said, swirling my drink, but she keeps reassuring me that everything's fine. I don't know what to think. Jake raised an eyebrow and leaned back in his chair. Man, I get it. Lila sometimes makes me feel the same way. She's way out of my league, you know? And I start thinking, what am I doing wrong? He chuckled, but there was an edge of seriousness in his voice. But trust me, dude, you're just feeling insecure. Nora loves you, and she's not going anywhere. I'd been wrestling with the idea that maybe I wasn't enough for her, but Jake's reassurance made me second-guess that. Maybe I was overthinking it. Maybe I was just insecure. I tried to push those doubts aside, focusing on the positives. Nora's smile when she saw me, the way she still kissed me goodnight. Things seemed fine again. Until 2 weeks ago. I found something that shook me. 2 weeks ago, I came home early from work, hoping to surprise Nora with some groceries. It wasn't anything extravagant, just some of her favorite snacks and a few things we'd run out of, but I thought it would be a nice gesture. I knew her schedule by heart, and she was supposed to be home when I arrived. But when I walked into the store, I didn't find her in the aisles like I expected. Instead, I saw her talking on the phone with someone. She was picking up a few items, her back turned to me, but something about the phone she was holding caught my eye. The cover was almost identical to hers, familiar, but it was just off. It wasn't the same one. I knew I had bought that phone case for her. I even remember her picking it out in the store, laughing about how she wanted something more girly to match her personality. But now she was holding something else, almost identical, but not quite. At first, I brushed it off. Maybe she had swapped out the case, right? Maybe it was something she'd ordered and didn't think to mention. But the more I thought about it, the less sense that made. If she had done that, she would have just told me. She wouldn't need to hide it. I stood there for a second, frozen. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but I couldn't shake the feeling in my gut. It told me something was off. Maybe I was being paranoid, maybe I wasn't. But in that moment, I couldn't just let it go. So, I did something I felt bad about, but I couldn't help it. I quietly ducked behind a shelf, out of her view, and dialed her number. My hands were shaking slightly as I heard it ring, and then her voice answered. "Hey, babe," she said, sounding perfectly cheerful. "Hey," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Are you in the store?" "I'm parked outside." "Yeah, I'm just about to come out," she replied, her voice a little too quick, a little too rehearsed. And then, she did something that I couldn't ignore. She reached into her purse, pulled out her actual phone, the one I knew, and hung up the other one. I could barely see it, but the way she shoved it into a hidden pocket in her purse felt deliberate. It wasn't just her purse. I'd never seen her use that pocket before. My heart started to race. What was going on? Why hide the phone like that? I tried to shake it off, but by the time she came out of the store, I felt like I was suffocating. She was carrying the groceries, chatting casually, but I could barely hear her over the pounding in my chest. "Hey, can I hold your purse for a second?" I asked, trying to sound casual, though I could feel the tension in my voice. She stiffened. "No, I got it," she said quickly, handing me the bags with a forced smile. I took the groceries from her, but all I could think about was that phone. I watched her closely as we walked to the car. When we got home, she practically bolted inside. I followed her into the house, but she was already putting her purse somewhere I couldn't see. She wasn't being obvious about it, but I knew she was hiding it. At that point, I knew asking for it would be too obvious. What was I supposed to do now? I couldn't just ignore it, but I didn't want to confront her without knowing more. I felt like I was on the edge of something, but I had no idea what. I didn't act on my suspicions at first. I kept telling myself it was probably just a work phone, or something else with an innocent explanation. I didn't want it to be what my gut was telling me, so I stayed in denial for a few days. I knew she took the phone with her to work and must have hidden it somewhere I couldn't find. I wanted to talk to Jake about it, but I decided to wait until I was sure about what was going on. Looking back, I'm glad I didn't bring it up with him. Even during all of this, I kept telling myself that Nora wasn't cheating on me, that there had to be another explanation. But deep down, I knew what was likely happening. A week ago, I finally faced the truth when I found the phone. I told Nora I was going for a run in the morning and waited for her to take a bath, knowing she'd take a long time. Since she had no idea, I was doubting her. I thought she might slip up while she was in the shower. I searched around and finally found the phone she'd been hiding. When I checked it, my worst fears came true. The phone was mostly used to call and text one person. It was labeled work, but I wasn't foolish enough at that point to believe that was the real reason for the phone. I checked the call history and messages, and the person felt strangely familiar. It didn't take me long to realize what was happening, but I couldn't fully process it until I saw that they had a meeting planned for the next day. I was hoping, at this point, that my wife was involved in some secret, harmless business, like a drug operation, because I didn't want to face the reality that she was betraying me. I honestly would have been more relieved if she had been a drug kingpin or something, because I could have supported her in that. But the truth was much worse. I spent the whole day dreading what I knew I was about to discover, wishing for a different outcome, because the thought of my wife betraying me felt unbearable. The next day, I really didn't want to go, but I felt like I had no choice. I went to the Fairway Cafe, where they were meeting, wearing a disguise with a mustache because I knew Nora would recognize my usual clothes. I waited for a while, and then they arrived. What happened next shattered everything I knew. It felt like the earth was pulled out from under me, and my soul was yanked out of my body. The shock I experienced was indescribable, almost like it couldn't be broken. I saw them walking in hand, my wife and my best friend, Jake. They looked so happy together, like a perfect couple. They placed their order, and I couldn't take it anymore. I immediately left because I had seen everything I needed to. I almost lost control, but the shock was so intense that I couldn't even feel anything for over an hour. Then, I cried, trying to deny what I had just witnessed with my own eyes. My best friend was sleeping with my wife. I still can't wrap my head around it because it's the worst betrayal I could ever imagine. It feels like a personal attack, like something I couldn't have prepared for. I trusted those two more than anyone, even more than my own parents. They were the people I would have laid down my life for. It's been 2 days now, and I've barely spoken to Nora or Jake. I can't even look at them without thinking about what they've done to me. Honestly, I feel like I'm losing my mind. I've been waking up hoping it was all just a nightmare, but then reality hits, and I feel overwhelmed with depression. This situation feels so absurd that I'm not sure anyone would believe me, and the only people I could confide in are the ones who betrayed me. What did I do to deserve this? Eventually, I decided to confront my wife, though I didn't reveal everything I had seen. There was a reason for this, which I'll explain in a bit. Before I go further, I want to thank everyone who supported me and offered helpful advice. A few days after I posted, I had no choice but to face the reality of the situation. Both Nora and Jake had left me with no other option but to accept what was happening. Obviously, Nora noticed something was off, but I lied to her, telling her it was work-related. At that point, I wasn't sure how I wanted to approach the confrontation, so I decided to control my emotions first and see how far my wife and best friend would continue lying to me. I honestly thought that if I confronted them, one of them would break down and tell me the truth. I think deep down, I wanted to prove to myself that they were still the people I thought I knew, that they were still the same people I loved. One day, I decided to ask Nora about Jake. It was one of those moments when I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, and I just needed to know. I tried to keep my tone casual, but I could feel the tension building inside me as I walked up to her. "What do you think of Jake?" I asked, my voice steady but my heart racing. She looked up from what she was doing, confused. "What do you mean? Why are you asking about him?" I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "I don't know. I just wanted to know what you think. He's been around a lot lately, and I just thought I should ask." She paused for a moment, then looked me straight in the eyes. There was no hesitation, no sign of doubt in her expression. "I trust Jake," she said, her voice smooth and confident. "I respect him a lot. He's been a great friend to both of us. You know, I've always seen him as a brother, and I'm glad he moved close. I think he makes you happy." Her words came out effortlessly, as if they were rehearsed. She didn't flinch, didn't stammer. Everything she said was so perfect, so genuine sounding. There was no hint of guilt or shame, no subtle change in her tone. She said it all with such ease that I almost wanted to believe her, almost wanted to let it go. If I hadn't known what I knew, her answer would have made me love her even more. It was exactly what I wanted to hear, the kind of response that would have put all my doubts to rest. But in that moment, something twisted in my chest. I couldn't shake the feeling that I had just been fed the perfect lie. She never expected me to find out. Then, I did the same thing with Jake. I told him I was just comparing their answers to see who cared about me more. His response was similar to Nora's. He said that Nora was the perfect wife for me, that he was happy for me, and that she was the only one he trusted to take care of me. Just like Nora, there wasn't a trace of guilt in his voice. He didn't feel bad for what he had done, which led me to believe that either he didn't want me to be happily married or, worse, he didn't care about me at all. This was painful to hear, but I had to keep pretending everything was fine, even though it was incredibly hard. After that, I spoke to Jake's wife, Lila, under the guise of catching up with her. In reality, I wanted to see if she had any idea about the affair, and it was clear that she didn't. The way she spoke and her lack of awareness confirmed that she was just as clueless as I had been a month ago, completely unaware of what was happening behind her back. I wanted to confront her right then and there, but I decided against it. I wanted to take a different approach. I chose to confront my wife without mentioning my best friend, hoping that she would come clean on her own. If she didn't, then I had something else in mind, and it wouldn't be pretty for any of us. Honestly, I didn't want to follow through with what I was thinking, but I felt I had no choice. I decided to give my wife one last chance. If she was honest with me, I'd handle it myself, but if not, I'd take it public. It's been almost 2 weeks since I confronted Nora. I followed through with my plan, but it didn't go how I imagined. Not at all. I grabbed the phone from her purse, my hands shaking but my mind clear. I wasn't going to back down. I couldn't. "Why are you cheating on me?" I asked, my voice low but steady, trying to keep the anger from spilling out. I didn't want to give her the satisfaction of seeing me lose control, but I could feel the weight of the question crushing me as I waited for her response. She didn't even flinch. No look of surprise, no shame. She just laughed it off, her tone dismissive. "It's my office phone. I accidentally brought it home," she said, brushing it off like it was nothing. "I bought the same cover you got me for this one," she added, as though that should make everything okay. "It's for client texts and appointments with one of my colleagues." She was so calm, so confident in her lies. She even showed me the text on the phone, as if that would be enough to convince me. But I wasn't fooled. Not anymore. The more she talked, the more I felt like I was listening to a rehearsed script. When there was no reply for 5 minutes, she called the number, and a woman picked up, sounding completely unfazed. "What's wrong?" the woman asked. Nora quickly answered, "I forgot to put the pin back." The woman just said, "It's fine," in a way that almost seemed too casual, too practiced. I couldn't even pretend that I believed any of it. It felt like a trap, like they were always prepared for this moment. I wasn't surprised. It was clear they had layers of excuses ready. If I'd confronted her when I first found the phone, I knew I would have been easily dismissed, and the doubt in my mind would have been planted. But she didn't know I already knew the truth. I'd already connected the dots. And that's when I refused to believe her. No, I said, my voice firm. You're lying to me. Come clean with me. I'm not buying this anymore. She froze for a moment, clearly shocked by my refusal to buy into her story. I stared her down, waiting for her to admit the truth. I needed her to come clean. She kept trying to explain, her words coming faster and more desperate, but the more she spoke, the angrier I became. Each lie felt like a slap in the face, and I couldn't take it anymore. I know you're cheating on me, I said, my voice steady but full of anger. This is the last time I'm asking you. Come clean. Now. At that, something shifted in her. Her face flushed, and her eyes narrowed. For a moment, I thought maybe she was going to finally admit the truth. But then, something completely unexpected happened. She snapped. How dare you? She screamed, her voice rising with fury. You're treating me like I've committed some crime. I can't believe you're accusing me of this. I stood there, not flinching. Her words didn't shake me anymore. I had already seen enough, felt enough. The lies were suffocating me, and I wasn't going to back down this time. Tell me the truth. I insisted, my voice sharp, unwavering. You owe me that much, Nora. She stepped back, her eyes wild with rage. You've lost your mind, she spat. I don't know what you think you know, but you have no right to accuse me like this. And then, in a flash, she slapped me across the face. It stung, but I barely felt it. The shock of her actions hit me harder than the physical pain. My heart pounded in my chest, and for a moment, I just stood there, frozen, as she stormed toward the door. You're unbelievable, she hissed, before slamming it behind her as she stormed out of the house. Then things took a turn. Nora called both of our families and painted a picture of me that I never recognized. She told them I had completely lost it, that I was harassing her by accusing her of cheating. The phone calls started coming in fast and furious. Family members, some of them shouting, others just confused. Most of them were on her side, especially my own family. They all believed her, and it felt like I was the one on trial. I tried to defend myself, explaining that it was all a misunderstanding, but it only made things worse. The more I tried to explain, the more I seemed to dig myself deeper. I eventually apologized to everyone, swearing it wouldn't happen again, but inside, I was fuming. The humiliation was overwhelming. I will get even with her, I promised to myself. A few days later, Nora came home. It was like she'd just been on a brief vacation from our life, but now she was back, and she expected everything to go back to normal. I knew I had to apologize. She wasn't going to back down, and I couldn't keep up this act of confrontation. I'm sorry, I told her when we sat down. I acted foolishly. I've just been struggling with insecurities lately. I was scared that I wasn't enough for you, and when I found the phone, I jumped to conclusions. I felt like I was drowning in my own words, but I forced myself to continue. I should have talked to you about it sooner, instead of accusing you like that. I was wrong. She looked at me for a moment, and I saw the tension leave her face. She softened. It's my fault too, she said, her voice calmer now. If I had just told you about the phone, none of this would have happened. I nodded, pretending everything was fine. I should have trusted you. I'm sorry. But before I let the issue die, I felt like I needed to ask, just one last time. If there's anything you need to tell me, I said, my voice low but firm, now is the time. No more secrets, Nora. If there's anything you're hiding, I need to know. She looked at me, her eyes steady. For a brief moment, I thought I saw a flicker of something in them, but then it was gone. She smiled softly, reaching for my hand. I promise, she said, squeezing my hand. There's nothing I'm hiding. You have my word. And just like that, the conversation was over. She promised. She said everything I needed to hear. Jake called me a few days after everything blew up. His voice was calm, almost too calm, like he was trying to avoid confrontation. Hey man, he said, I heard about what happened with you and Nora. What's going on? Why'd you do that? I took a deep breath, running a hand through my hair. I had doubts, okay? I found the phone, and things didn't add up. I'm sorry I overreacted, but I had to know the truth. He sighed on the other end, like he was frustrated with me, but trying to keep it cool. Look, I get it, all right? But you have to trust Nora. She's not hiding anything from you. I wasn't convinced, but I didn't argue with him. Instead, I told him, I just need her to be honest. That's all. If she is, I'll drop everything. But if she's not, I need to know. Jake stayed quiet for a moment before changing the subject. Well, I'll swing by for dinner tonight. We'll talk more then. Make sure everything's okay between you guys. When he came over, Everything seemed like it was going back to normal. Nora was the picture of the perfect wife, and Jake was the perfect friend, pretending like everything was fine. I kept waiting for the truth, but it never came. I started questioning everything. The way they both acted, the way they lied with such ease. It all felt like they were convinced that I am a willing cuck. A few days passed, and I realized I was done waiting for them to come clean. It was clear neither of them was going to tell me the truth. I couldn't keep pretending like I didn't know what was going on. I started planning. It wasn't just going to be between me and them anymore. No more closed doors, no more whispered conversations. I was done playing nice. This time, the truth was going to come out, and it was going to happen in front of the whole family. How am I going to do it? Well, I have evidence that will definitely make them talk. Just give me a few weeks. I had to wait for a family event, which finally took place a week later. It was my cousin's engagement party, and unfortunately for him, that was when I had to do it. I didn't have any other choice. I wasn't going to wait any longer. Fortunately, the party was held at our family home, so most of our relatives were there. Of course, Jake and Lila were invited as well, since Jake has always been like family to me and is invited to everything I do. I had always asked my cousin for permission to show something small to my wife, and knowing what had recently happened between us, he happily agreed to let me share something in front of everyone and place the giant TV in the room. I didn't tell him what it was, though. I was afraid he wouldn't let me do it. So, we all attended the party, and I was fully prepared. We had a great time, and the party lasted quite a while. Then it came time for me to take the stage and show what I had prepared. I quickly dialed my in-laws on video call and handed my phone to a relative to make sure they could see everything clearly. They had been supportive from the start, but I knew this would change everything. As I prepared to speak, I noticed Nora scanning the room, her eyes narrowing as she caught sight of the phone in my hand. "Everyone," I called out, my voice steady despite the racing pulse in my chest. "I need your attention. I have something important to show you. Something I've been holding onto for far too long." The chatter died down, but Nora's eyes locked onto mine with a mix of disbelief and fury. I didn't let it stop me. I wasn't about to back down now. I want to make it clear that I'm not lying. Everything I've been saying about Nora cheating on me is true, and she refused to come clean. No more lies. "You all deserve to know what's really been happening behind closed doors," I said, my eyes never leaving Nora's. Her face turned red. "What the hell are you talking about?" she screamed, standing up from her seat. "You've lost your mind. What do you think you're doing?" Before anyone could intervene, I tapped the play button, and the TV came to life. The screen flickered, and a video started playing. There they were, Nora and Jake, right in front of everyone, screwing each other's brains out. The video clearly showed them on our bed, and as much as I hated to see it, I had to. I had to let everyone else see it too, so they would finally understand what I had been dealing with. I could hear their gasps, but I didn't care. I had every right to expose this, to let everyone see the truth. Nora started screaming, "No, no, stop." Her voice cracked as she tried to lunge toward the projector, but she was too late. The damage was done. The video couldn't be undone. Her face turned white as she realized what I had done, how I had exposed them. But then I turned my gaze to Jake. He was standing frozen, his face pale as a ghost. He glanced over at his wife, who was now slapping him with every ounce of fury she had. But what struck me the most was the utter lack of remorse in his eyes. He didn't even try to defend himself. He stood there like a coward. Nora, on the other hand, couldn't even bring herself to look at anyone. Her eyes were glued to the floor as she stood there, ashamed. Lila, after hitting Jake, kicked him out of the house, and my mother grabbed Nora by the hair and literally beat the brakes out of her. She kept screaming my name, as if I was going to save her, but I didn't budge. Jake didn't even speak to me, which was a relief because had he said anything, I would have punched him in the face. I told both of them that I'd done nothing to deserve this betrayal, but for some reason, they decided to hurt me. I told them I never wanted to see them again and warned Nora that if she tried to come back, I would involve the police. The worst part is that they've become social pariahs. No one is willing to talk to them, and they're finding it difficult to leave their homes without being harassed. I guess this will stay with them for the rest of their lives. Since the party, they haven't shown their faces, and Lila and I have been supporting each other through this. She's kicked Jake out, and we've both decided to divorce our partners. For anyone wondering, I did apologize to Lila for not telling her about this sooner, and she said it was okay. She's devastated, and I know it's going to take her a long time to recover. It's not like I'm happy about this either. It'll take me a long time to heal too. But I'm glad I did what I did and cut them out of my life. After everything that happened, there was no going back. I couldn't pretend anymore that things could be salvaged or that I was willing to live in the shadow of the lies and betrayal. I filed for divorce. Nora, of course, tried to cry again. She'd never been good at facing the consequences of her actions, and now, with the divorce looming, she resorted to the same tactics. Her tears were always her way of manipulating the situation, making herself the victim even when she was the one who had done the hurting. She called me, begged me to come over, but I already knew what it was going to be. She would cry, apologize, and try to make me feel guilty for ending it all. When I walked into the room, she was already sitting on the couch, her face streaked with tears. She looked at me, her eyes wide, pleading for me to listen. "Please, just listen to me," she said, her voice trembling. "I never wanted this to happen. I was confused. I made a mistake. I love you. I really do. You mean everything to me. Please don't leave me." I crossed my arms, standing firm. I wasn't going to let her manipulate me again. "You love me?" I scoffed. "If you loved me, you wouldn't have done what you did. You wouldn't have betrayed me with him, of all people, with Jake. This isn't just a mistake, Nora. It's who you are. And I'm done with it." She sobbed harder, her voice becoming frantic. "I know I messed up, but please, please, don't do this. Don't leave me. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. You've lost me. There's nothing left to save," I said, and with that, I turned and walked out, leaving her behind. No more tears or apologies could change what had already been done. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.